Hey folks, good afternoon. Thanks for joining me. This is Ignacio with North Star Senior Advisors, and welcome to our weekly live Facebook chat. Here we go over different topics, relevant topics, useful resources, and various things to help our seniors in our community. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. We'll try to get those answered for you as quickly as possible, or you can give us a call at 407-796-1582. So with that said, let's dive into today's topic. And today's topic is, well, the question I should say is, when is it the right time to move into an assisted living? So, this could be obviously a difficult and sometimes tough question to answer. Ultimately, it is your decision, obviously, as a decision maker, whether it's for yourself or for your loved one. One thing that we do recommend, obviously, if there's family engagement, consult with your family, really understand the dynamic, and if possible, at times, maybe consult with your physician as well to see if that time has come to transition into an assisted living. Now, with that said, I want to go over a couple of things today to kind of take into consideration that may help you understand the timeline or the timing into making that decision, and some things to consider and some resources as well. So let's go into that. For us, as we work with families, the number one thing that we'll say is, or the number one thing I should say that needs to be really considered is safety, right? So is your loved one safe? Are you safe? And how do you define safety? So, number one is going to be your environment. Are you in a safe environment? Is your home safe, or wherever you may be? Is it conducive to living conditions and in a place where you can continue to thrive? So that's number one, right? You want to make sure that safety is of utmost concern and making sure that everybody is safe. The other thing is the stability and the health of the individual. That's something that also has to be considered. So as a nurse, right, I'm a nurse, and I can tell you that that's one thing that we hear many of times is that there's a caregiver scenario involved. Caregivers taking care of their loved one, they're doing their best they can, they may have resources coming into the home. So then the question is, can that continue and for how long? So we'll talk about that also here in a second. Another thing to look for is going to be the exacerbation of any underlying health conditions. So, it could be that, it could be high blood pressure, it could be early stage dementia, it could be a variety of things that may be going on, maybe a high risk for falls, right? So there's different things that could be going on at the home that could be exacerbated by various things. So that's another thing you really want to consider and really look at closely as you're considering a transition or the timing of a transition into an assisted living. So really quick, let's break that down. So from a clinical perspective, let's just take some diagnoses, whether it's high blood pressure, post falls, whatever it could be. What's going on at the home? Is the home the best conducive place to make sure that your loved one is safe? And I'll go into some resources later about that. Also, the dementia. So if there's Alzheimer's or dementia going on, is there an exacerbation to that? Has something happened that now that's progressed significantly so to where maybe the caregiver does not have the ability, the resources, or the know-how on how to properly care for their loved one given that exacerbation? So again, going back to safety, right? This is all tied to safety at the home. We want to make sure that safety is considered number one. So going back to the caregiver scenario, so now more than ever, we're finding with everything going on here recently, right? There's a lot more caregivers at home. People are staying home with what's going on, especially with COVID-19. You have some folks that are staying home, whether they're out of work or they've made the decision to stay home. So there's support at the home, but from a caregiver perspective, they may be limited on what they can do for their loved one based on knowledge of their diagnosis, patience, to be honest with you, sometimes. So what we have found over time is that there is such a thing as caregiver burnout. So it could be a new caregiver's coming into the scenario, and they're really learning how to care for their loved one, or it could be a caregiver that's been caring for their loved one, their spouse, their mom, their dad, for years, okay, and they've done so just fine, but again, something has happened to exacerbate or worsen their medical condition or dementia or Alzheimer's, and now they're in a place where it's beyond their knowledge, their skill set or tolerance, right? So we see a lot of caregiver burnout. So that's another thing to consider in terms of timing of when it's a good time to go into an assisted living and or memory care. So again, just a quick recap. That's from a safety perspective at home. Another thing that we've seen here recently in terms of a question to timing is now with COVID-19. So a lot of our clients and families are saying, is it safe to transition into an assisted living now with COVID-19 out in the community? So our answer is, it's your decision, of course. So our job is to empower you with the knowledge of what the communities are doing, many of the assisted living communities, memory care communities are doing to protect the seniors. So let me touch on that just a little bit. So, assisted living is regulated, as many of you may know. So there's been a lot of steps taken to really protect our seniors, the most vulnerable population in these communities and facilities, okay? They're following CDC guidelines, and if it's an assisted living, they're going by ACA protocols as well and guidelines. So just to give you an example, some things that are happening, as of today, still, they're not allowing visitors to go in, and I expect this to get revisited sometime in July. The governor will, look at that guidance, and he'll make a decision if that's something that will change, and if so, to what degree, we're not sure yet. But as of today, no visitors are allowed in to protect the seniors unless there's certain conditions that are met. Then they may allow that in a case-by-case basis. So that's happening. They're using PPE, of course, to protect the seniors. All staff is using PPE. Another thing is, if it's a new client that's moving into the community, they are requiring negative COVID-19 tests to be captured prior to allowing a new resident to move into the community. And they're also doing traditionally a 14-day quarantine once they move in new into the community to make sure that they're not showing any symptoms and everything's fine before they can mingle with the rest of the community. So very stringent protocols to protect the individual and those individuals, seniors in those communities. Again, all of this will be revisited, I would say around mid-July by the governor. It could remain the same, it could get extended, it could be tweaked a little bit and modified. It's really going to depend on various factors that we just don't have exposure to right now. So, but going back to the question, is it safe to move in with COVID-19 happening? So again, it's a decision you'll have to make based on the safety topics that we talked about, right? So if you have the luxury to keep your loved one at home or stay home longer until COVID-19 is a little bit resolved. Now, to be honest with you folks, COVID-19 is not going to disappear until there's a vaccine in place. Now, we've heard from media and various sources, as I'm sure everybody's aware, it could be 12, 18 months. So until there is a vaccine in place, okay, COVID-19 is not going to go anywhere, right? So it's important to recognize that, number one. So then it's going to be a matter of preference and safety and understanding, and this is where you consult with your family, consult with your physician to make that decision, okay? If it's gotten to the point where, again, safety is a concern, you're worried about your loved one at home, you don't have the luxury to really ride out COVID-19, then you may have to make that decision to move into an assisted living or memory care community, okay? And our job here as senior living advisors is to give you the information on which ones have the availability, precautions that are being taken, and the steps that will be needed to make sure that that's a smooth and safe transition. So again, to answer that question, is it safe to move, or is now the right time to move with COVID-19? It's going to depend on your individual situation with you or your loved one, whether you made that decision or not, consulting with your family, looking at various factors, maybe consult with your physician to make that decision, okay? So if you do decide to stay home longer and you want to hold off on assisted living, again, perfectly understandable, your decision. There are some resources that can come to the home and help care for you or your loved one as you stay at the home, right? So one of them being a home physicians group. So there's multiple companies that can have a physician or a nurse practitioner go to the home. So if you have, instead of going out to doctor's appointments, and these services, by the way, are typically covered by Medicare or your health insurance. So you can have these folks come to your home, provide that care safely, and they follow protocols. They use PPE as well. So that could be a potential resource for you as you stay at home. Another big one is home health. So there's two types of home health. And by the way, I'll be talking about this next week on our Facebook Live, is the difference between Medicare home health or skilled home health versus private duty home health. I'll dive deeper into that next week. But those are also two resources you can have come to the home to really help you while you're at the home setting to care for you or your loved one. Okay, so the Medicare skilled home health is just that. So you have registered nurse, physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist providing services at the home. Medicare pays for that. Private duty is out of pocket, of course, and that's when you have somebody kind of stay with you longer. It could be a block of time, but it's out of pocket. So again, I'll dive into that next week, but that could be another resource. Another thing is through some coordination, maybe a care manager can be set up. And this is more so if the family is remote, maybe, parents are here, they don't have a lot of people locally to really keep an eye on your parents. Some folks will coordinate with care managers to have that oversight at the local level in terms of resources and care and coordination. So that could be a great tool as well. They can help with things like Meals on Wheels, setting that up if nutrition is a concern, which, by the way, is also tied to safety. Okay, obviously, if you're not getting the proper nutrition, your health becomes a concern, which is, again, a safety concern. So that's also very important. We do see that a lot, by the way. Feel free to contact us for any of this. So we work with various entities. We can give you a lot of information on these resources, and we know this may not be an easy decision in terms of when is it a good time to move into an assisted living. We're here to just guide you, explain things to you, resources and whatnot, to the best of our ability to help you make that decision. So I want to thank you for your time today. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. You can leave them here in the comments. We'll get those answered for you. You can give us a call, 407-796-1582. You can also visit our website at Northstar SA, that's S like senior, A like advisor.com. So thank you so much for your time today, folks. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.